Police expected a robbery, maybe a missing family. Instead, they stepped into a house frozen in time. Every light was still on. Classical funeral music echoed through empty hallways. No footsteps, no voices. The thermostat had been turned almost to freezing. At first, investigators couldn't understand why. Then, they opened the ballroom. 5 bodies. A mother, 3 teenagers, an elderly grandmother. Everything looked organized, almost ceremonial. But one thing was missing: the man responsible. He hadn't fled in panic. He hadn't stolen anything. It was as if he had simply disappeared. Then detectives noticed something chilling. Someone had carefully cut one person's face out of every family photograph, precisely removed. Who erases themselves from every memory after killing everyone inside? And more importantly, where did that man go? For the next 18 years, nobody knew. His name was John List. To his neighbors, he seemed ordinary. He taught Sunday school, balanced company finances, wore clean suits, never drank, never swore, never raised his voice. He looked like the last person anyone would suspect. But behind that image, everything was falling apart. The mansion was drowning in debt. Bills piled up. Then John lost his job, but he told no one. Every morning, he put on his suit, picked up his briefcase, and left the house. Not for work. He spent his days sitting in a train station, reading newspapers, pretending his old life still existed. How long can someone fake an entire life? Long enough to believe there's only one escape. People often ask, when did John List become capable of this? The answer isn't simple. Darkness rarely announces itself. It whispers. John believed financial failure wasn't just humiliation. It was spiritual failure. He feared poverty would pull his family away from God. In his mind, losing money meant losing eternity. Most people facing bankruptcy ask for help. John reached a different conclusion. If his family died now, their souls could still be saved. That belief slowly became a plan. And once he decided, he approached it like an accountant. Methodically, calmly, without emotion. On November 9th, 1971, John wasn't acting in rage. He believed he was doing the right thing. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. John List looked like your accountant. Everything happened according to schedule. His children left for school. His wife stayed home. His elderly mother was upstairs. John waited until the front door closed. He picked up his pistol. The first shot echoed through the kitchen. His wife collapsed. He walked upstairs. Another shot. Another life lost. Then, he cleaned. Not out of regret, but for order. He moved both bodies into the ballroom, cleaned the blood, straightened the house. Then he waited. Hours later, his daughter came home. Minutes later, his youngest son. Neither survived. Only one child remained, his oldest son. John drove to the soccer field, watched him play, and cheered like any proud father. Then they drove home. The boy fought desperately, but there was never another ending. 5 lives, 1 day, almost no mistakes. Or so he believed. Most people responsible for crimes run. John organized. He made himself a sandwich, poured a glass of milk, then calmly wrote a 5-page confession to his pastor. Not the police, his pastor. He claimed he hadn't destroyed his family. He believed he had saved them. Then came the strangest part. He walked through the house, collecting family photographs. One by one, he cut out his own face. Every picture, every memory, every trace. It wasn't vandalism. It was identity deletion. He wanted investigators to know who had died without seeing who was responsible. The lights stayed on. The funeral music kept playing. The doors were locked. And John List vanished like he had never existed. Except he hadn't disappeared. He had simply changed names. 18 years. No sightings. No fingerprints. No mistakes. John List became Robert P. Clark, a quiet accountant, church volunteer, friendly neighbor, reliable husband. He married again, started another life. His new wife never knew. Imagine sharing a bed for years with one of America's most wanted fugitives and never suspecting a thing. Investigators slowly accepted something terrifying. Maybe he'd died. Maybe he'd escaped overseas. Maybe they would never find him. Until one desperate idea changed everything. Not new evidence, not DNA, not fingerprints. An artist. Could a sculpture identify the man responsible? It sounded ridiculous. Until it worked. Frank Bender wasn't just making sculptures. He rebuilt identities. The FBI handed him old black and white photographs, 18 years out of date. Most artists would have guessed. Bender studied psychology instead. How would a rigid accountant age? What kind of glasses would he wear? How would stress reshape his jaw? Then, he made one bold decision. Dark, horn-rimmed glasses. There was no evidence John wore them, just instinct. When the clay face was finished, it didn't resemble the fugitive from 1971. It resembled the man living quietly in Virginia, a man who thought he'd escaped forever. America was about to meet him again. May 21st, 1989. Millions watched America's Most Wanted. The camera slowly circled the clay bust. Across America, people stared. Most changed the channel. One woman didn't. She looked at the glasses, the jaw, the forehead, then quietly said, "I know him." She picked up the telephone. "That's my neighbor." 11 days later, FBI agents surrounded a quiet accounting office. Robert Clark looked confused, polite, cooperative. Even after his arrest, he insisted his name wasn't John List. For months, he refused to admit the truth. But fingerprints don't lie. And eventually, neither could he. John List escaped police. He escaped the FBI. He escaped America's largest manhunt. He escaped for nearly 2 decades. Yet the thing that finally exposed him wasn't science. It wasn't technology. It wasn't luck. It was human intuition. An artist imagined the face of an old man who no longer existed, and somehow imagined it perfectly. John List spent 18 years erasing himself. One sculptor rebuilt him in clay, and one neighbor finished the story with a single phone call. Sometimes, the hardest person to hide from is the person you eventually become.